Well, good day everybody and welcome back. Well, I have a package here today. I've been waiting for this package really for almost 2 years. This is the BYOK dedicated writing device. Bring your own keyboard. So I was a supporter of the Kickstarter. Okay, so the BYOK device in its box. So BYOK has two initial colors of models. There's the white and the black or very dark gray. This is the white one. And the device is kind of approximately the size of roughly a smartphone. It has the backlit LCD screen, power switch here. It has a USB-C port, micro SD card slot with the card already. There are some back buttons for controlling the menu, and then there is this magnetic mounting ring, like a smartphone mounting ring, which should align to the magnetic mount that they supplied, but I also bought an aftermarket mount of my own. And there is a quick start guide, QR code quick start guide. There is a little metal BYOK bookmark kind of thingy, USB-C cable, and it looks like they supplied an extra magnetic mounting ring for mounting it to something else. So before we get into how this works, I know I'm going to have to install a software upgrade because I've been reading the Reddit page for BYOK, and they have been doing a number of upgrades and changes and revisions to the operating system, so I need to go and do that first. So I need to make sure it's charged, hook up my mechanical keyboard, make sure that's working, and then get it online and do a software upgrade, and then we'll take a look and see how does this dedicated writing device work. Stay tuned. Okay, I have the keyboard connected. It is working. We're on Wi-Fi, and I'm currently checking for updates. It's on the supplied magnetic mount. It looks quite nice. Okay, here's the BYOK. Here is the power on-off button. On the back, you have some switches here. So the one on the bottom is the brightness selector for the screen. Then you have these up and down arrows and a selection button for the menu. So you can drive the menus from just the back button, but you can also drive the menus if you have embedded arrow keys on your keyboard, which my keyboard does have. We have USB-C for data transfer and charging, a charging light, and a micro SD card in the slot already. Well, let's go ahead and turn it on. There we go. Okay, so there's the menu. So on the back button there, the bottom switch was the one for the backlight. So if I press it once, it's brighter. So there is no backlighting at all. Then there's multiple levels of warm backlight. I think that's a pretty good level right there. So I have not used this at all for writing, but I understand that you first have to have a project folder, and then you have to open up a file within the project file. So since our cursor is on projects, we'll hit enter. We're going to select new project. We're going to name the new project test project. And you have to arrow down to the OK, hit enter. And now we're going to create a file within the test project. A new file we're going to call initial testing. There we go. Okay. Okay, so let's look at all the menu settings. So you can navigate the menu with the rear buttons on the back of the unit, but you can also navigate it on your keyboard. Hit escape to exit out of your document. So the top menu item is projects. If you select that, you basically have two options. You can open an existing project folder, or you can create a new project folder and name it. Exit out of there. The next option is file. So file, you can create a new file within the current folder. You can open an existing file, and you can delete a file. Next is Bluetooth. So I do not have a Bluetooth keyboard currently connected, but you can connect a Bluetooth keyboard by activating this command here. Next is Wi-Fi. So you can connect to a Wi-Fi router, you can disconnect it, you can turn off the Wi-Fi radio. And then this last item, check for update. When you are on Wi-Fi, you click that, it will automatically go to the BYOK website and check for a firmware update to the device. Syncing. You can sync your device to the BYOK Studio app and be able to sync your documents. You can set up your syncing here. I have not used this feature at all, but I understand it's pretty handy if you want to work online on a cloud-based setup. And then finally, settings. So we have fonts. We have 3 Arial fonts, small, medium, and large. We have 3 times small, medium, large, and 3 mono fonts. Back to settings. Contrast for the keyboard. So you can use your up and down arrows to increase the screen contrast. That looks a little too severe for me, so I'm going to decrease it a little bit there to your liking. This is similar to the AlphaSmart Neo, also had a contrast adjustment. There's also a keyboard section in settings, and you can choose US, UK, French, German, or Italian keyboard layouts. Then language, you can choose between German, English, Spanish, and French. And cursor type, I'm currently using the vertical cursor, but there's also a horizontal cursor available. And then disk mode will reconfigure the device to look like a thumb drive or an external hard drive. So it's currently in disk mode, and you just want to power it off to toggle it back out of disk mode back to the text editor mode. So this reminds me very much of the AlphaSmart in terms of the writing, the speed of the keyboard, the speed of the screen. It's very familiar to me. I really like it. I like the color of the screen, actually. It's quite nice. Okay, so I've discovered a few keyboard shortcuts for my little 60% keyboard using this function key and the Alt key and the Control key. So if I go Alt function and page up, I can go page down, which is embedded on the Y and the H. I can go Control E to the end of the file, Control B to the beginning of the file, and I think there's also beginning and end of the lines. Let's see, it moves the cursor to the end, and the home, Alt Control T, which is home here, moves the cursor to the beginning of the line. So there's your navigation on my little keyboard. So the BYOK website has a list of all the programmed in keyboard shortcuts right now. Okay, so let's get all this out here. All right, let's power it up for the morning. Should open up into what I was writing, and now we go to the Control space bar. So we have 80% battery life. It really has not dropped at all in the last 24 hours, which is really good. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to try some file management stuff. First of all, file transfers in disk mode. I want to go to disk mode and transfer this file to my Mac. I want to edit the file name, and then I want to resend it back to the BYOK with a edited title. So hopefully both of these files will be in the same folder then, like a revision number. It needs to be able to do that in order to be able to manage complex project with embedded folders and various version numbers. And then also, I want to check, how about importing text files from another source on my computer into the BYOK, like an old AlphaSmart Neo file, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we're in the file that we've been writing on in the BYOK, so I'm going to go to the menu here by hitting Escape, and I'm going to go to settings, and I'm going to go to disk mode. Okay, now I'm going to disconnect the keyboard from the BYOK, and we're going to hook it up to my Mac here. Okay, so I tried to place the BYOK into disk mode and use the supplied USB to USB-C cable to my Mac, and it wouldn't see the BYOK. What I've done now is I have a USB-C to USB-A adapter going to my other adapter on the other side of the computer. So let's go ahead and, since I don't have a keyboard plugged in here, let's go to settings and disk mode, put it back into disk mode. You will now notice on my Mac here, there is a no name folder. That is the actual BYOK device that's currently communicating. So let's look at the folders. So you remember projects folders, and I created a test project folder when I first powered it up and synced it. And inside that is this initial testing document, this text file that I've been working on. Well, what I'd like to do is let's open up another instance of my file finder. And I have an external hard drive connected, and I've created a BYOK folder up here. So what I'd like to do is go into the BYOK projects, test project folder. I'd like to copy this, the folder that we've been writing on, into my Mac's external hard drive, which I just did. I would like to make a duplicate in the Mac, and then I'm going to rename that duplicate. Let's say V2, maybe. Okay. So that is the same document with a different name. So I'd like to drag it back into the BYOK. So now we have two files in the BYOK, the initial one that we called initial testing, and this copy called initial testing V2. So let's go ahead and hook the BYOK back up to its keyboard and see if we can find that file. Okay, so I'm going to hit the escape key. I'm going to go to projects, I guess. Open projects folder, test project folder inside that. And now look at file, open file. And now we have two documents. We have the initial one, the initial text file, and we have this version 2. Let's open the version 2. So it looks like it's the same folder, same file, and that's really neat. So I can't stress how important this feature is. The fact that we can create our own folders, our project folders, create our own project files within the folders, and be able to seamlessly move both the folders and the files, if we needed to our computer via a simple file transfer method, and be able to rename folders in our computer, work on them, and then change the name perhaps as a revision number and send them back. This really makes the device actually practical for serious long-form projects. This is one of the things that we lost with the AlphaSmart when Renaissance Learning quit supporting their manager software. But here we have the ability to really manipulate the files and take ownership of our own file structure if that's the way we choose to work. Create our own folder, file directories in our computer, be able to manage, transfer the data, etc. So let's think of an example like, for instance, if you're working on a long-term project and there's multiple chapters in your project. Let's say you create a project folder for each chapter. Now you can write a chapter document in each one of those folders, and then you could transfer that chapter document to your computer, work on it at a different time on your computer, and then you could change the name of that file as a revision number change, pop it back to the BYOK, and then continue working on it at some time in the future. Right? So now you can manage multiple versions of the same files by how you rename them and be able to move them back and forth. That's super important, and that's like really crucial to being able to manage a serious long-form writing project. What I want to do is put a large text file into the BYOK. I have a story that I had written. It's pretty good size. Now, On BYOK's website, I think they said they've only tested the device up to, is it 10,000 word sized files? And they recommend chunking your project into smaller file sized chunks. But I know that on the AlphaSmart Neo, it had a problem if you were writing a really large file. As you were at the end of the file writing on it, it would kind of have this refresh lag every time you wrote another line. And I want to see how the BYOK performs in that regards. So, okay, I have this Loser's Blend story. It's a 51 kilobyte text file. I've dragged it into the inside folder that I had named on the BYOK. So let's disconnect the BYOK and then hook up the keyboard and see how it performs while we scroll through that file. Okay, so this is the long story that I transferred to the BYOK from my Mac. And so if I remember the keyboard shortcuts here properly, we're at the very end. I just made a note here. I was actually typing a note. But if I go to the function control home, it takes me to the very top of the file. This is like an 80, let's see. This is a 8,348 word document. Pretty good sized document. So now if I go function page down, I can cycle down page by page through this big story. And then if I go function control end, it takes me to the very end of the document where I can start typing again. So it seems like it types very quickly and briskly. I do not have the kind of problem that I used to have with the AlphaSmart Neo. I can navigate the entire document. Like I say, right here, I can go back home to the top of it. I can go to the end of it. I can cycle page by page up, etc. So I'm actually quite pleased with this. This is very good, and I'm glad that large files seem to work. Now, on the web page of BYOK, they said they've only tested this up to about 10,000 word sized documents. So if you're using much bigger file sizes, you might want to break it up into little chunks, smaller file sizes, but it seems to be working fine on larger files. So I'd next like to talk about the fit and finish of the product itself. So there are two colors available, this white color, and then there is a dark gray, basically a black color. Now I know on some of the Reddit pages for the BYOK, some of the customers complain that the white model tended to show stains or fingerprints or marks a lot easier than what they thought it would be. I haven't seen that problem. The next issue that some people kind of complained about is there are a row of what looks like LEDs inside the edge of the screen on the bottom. You can see this here. To some people, that was kind of distracting. It doesn't bother me personally, but that is there. And then I do notice one thing is there's an embedded metal ring in the body of the case here for the magnetic mount, and there is a layer of resin or whatever the plastic body is made out of. There's a layer between the metal ring and the case itself, and so some people have complained that maybe the magnetic mount is a little weak. However, BYOK did supply an extra metal ring with an adhesive backing where you could peel it off and stick the metal ring here, and that would increase the stickiness, the magnetic stickiness of the unit to the magnetic mount, whatever mount you're using. So those are the only real fit and finish issues that I have heard for the BYOK. Otherwise, I'm pretty pleased with the quality of it. Well, I think this is a good place to stop this review right now. I'm not going to cover the studio software that BYOK offers. I think we'll do that in another video. If there's interest in doing so, please drop a comment down below if you want to really see how that studio software works. And if you remember the previous video we did about typewriter adjacent writing devices, you might remember we talked about the Remarkable and the FreeWrite devices that were much more engineered to be talking to some custom cloud service. So If you're interested in that, BYOK does offer a kind of a cloud service as a studio writing environment. Well, my synopsis is the BYOK is indeed a very functional, distraction-free writing tool. I think it offers probably more capability than the AlphaSmart Neo did in its heyday, mainly because of the connectivity doesn't require custom software to talk to a computer. I think the navigation of a large file size, I had like an 8,300 word document, I could navigate up and down fine. Being able to create folders and then have files in that, and then being able to move different versions and renamed files from your computer back to the BYOK is something that really the AlphaSmart didn't do. It didn't really do folders. It had the function keys up here. So it offers a little bit more than the AlphaSmart did back in its heyday, and best of all, of course, is you outfit it with whatever style or size keyboard you really like to use. So I'm really pleased with it right now. I'm really pleased with the efforts that the development team have made to continue. Now that the Kickstarter has been released, they are continuing to debug it and work on problems as they show up. So the only issue I had was the USB-C to USB-C cable wouldn't talk to my MacBook Pro, which my computer is about 2 years old, and they said they have heard of other issues with older Macs having that issue. The latest MacBook Pros and Airs don't have a problem, so it could be a hardware compatibility issue, but the workaround that I've been able to use is a dongle that goes into the USB-C jacks on my Mac, but it accepts USB-A ports, and that seems to be working fine. So that's what I'll be using for now. And of course, the even easier solution is a micro SD to SD adapter. Take the card out of the BYOK, pop it into the side of the Mac, and you're good. You don't need the cable at all. So that's probably the most logical way to transfer the files if you have a Mac and you have that issue. Actually, battery life looks like it's hardly changed at all in the last 24 hours since I've been using it. And perhaps when I've plugged the USB-C cable in, maybe that's been getting a little charge from my Mac, but I know BYOK was saying they expect like 18 to 20 hour battery life. But that was kind of pessimistic based on you're using a Bluetooth keyboard. So the device is constantly broadcasting on Bluetooth, and also you might be using Wi-Fi, continuously backing up your files to their Studio cloud service. But I'm using this thing offline with a non-Bluetooth keyboard, and it looks like the battery life is going to be really good, so I'm really happy about it. Well, in any event, if you guys are interested in this, drop a note down below. Let's talk about it some more, and I will have some updates in the BYOK space as I learn more about this. And as always, this is about creativity, creative writing, of course, having these new typewriter adjacent tools that are being built. Stay creative. Have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.